Well, good evening to you and welcome to this program of Rodney Groundings. I'm your host, Dion Abrams, and on the program this evening I have my usual guest, Brother Tacuma Ogenseye, and as usual we'll be talking about current political issues in Guyana and further afield. I want to welcome you to the program.
Thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here again so that we could continue this work. We have been doing it for quite a while, and people always look out for us, so we're always happy when we could do it.
Yeah, so we want to begin by looking at international scenarios, and we want to again take a look at the Gaza-Palestine Israeli situation. The devastation of the Palestinian people continues, not only the infrastructure but also lives of children, women, men are being lost. The world is coming to a point where I know a lot of the countries are shouting genocide for a country like Israel that has been for years decrying the Nazi situation, which they call a Holocaust. How do you view their current response and their treating with Palestine, even after the United Nations, the Secretary General would have made several pronouncements in terms of their conduct against the Palestinian people? What are your current thoughts?
I agree with a lot of the observations you have made. Israel is a pariah state. It has, since its existence, have been denying and ignoring United Nations resolution. It's occupying a colonial occupying power in Palestine. And after its birth, which was facilitated by the UN, the US, and the United Nations, which grant them about 55% Palestinian lands. And since then, they have occupied another 25% of Palestinian lands. So they have been a occupier, and in international law, when you're an occupier, you're an invader of people's land, you really don't have no real rights, under international law. Now, but to respond more to the present crisis, I want to use the opportunity on the behalf of this program and the Working People's Alliance to extend our condolences to the people of Palestine. All peace-loving people in the world have to find ways and means to come out and denounce this barbarity that Israel is carrying out in the name of self-defense. And what is more distressing is the support they have been receiving from the United States and Britain and some other European countries. This is very sad because, the United States has a history of playing an important role in the decolonization process in the world, British colonialism and European colonialism. But it is sad that on the question of Israel, there seems, for whatever reason, can't find a realistic and a just approach to the Israeli aggression in the Middle East. And it is tied up with the fact that the United States have always seen Israel as an important military and political outpost to control Middle East oil. So they have seen Israel as part of the geopolitical design in the area. But one would expect that in the light of this kind of barbarism, and in the light of the fact that the Democrats and Biden is facing an election which is very likely to be a very competitive elections, one wonder what is pushing them, to continue this support of Israel supplying them with all the necessary finances, all the necessary materials to wage the war. And at the same time, they say they're fighting for restraint and they want to find a way to bring an end to the conflict and to find a way to facilitate the two-state solution. But the present commitment to Israel undoubtedly, throw, doubts as to the genuine commitment. And I don't know, you don't have to be a political scientist to know. The Democratic Party is divided over it. And in these elections that are coming up, the Democrats will be losing a lot of the Palestinian Arab votes. United States citizens that come from Palestine and Arabia. And they'll be losing a lot of that vote, and they'll be losing a lot of other votes from the African community, Spanish community, who may come out in solidarity of the treatment of the Palestine. So what baffles me is why is it Biden and the Americans and the Democrats in general seems to be more concerned with the survival of the Israeli Prime Minister than winning their own crucial elections. But we have to join the voice of progressive mankind and condemn these acts of genocide. They have killed over 24,000 Palestinians. Over 65,000 Palestinians have been injured due to this bombardment. And then more important, the untold number of sufferings due to the blockage of food, water, sewage, and the whole medical destruction of schools, destruction of hospitals. I mean, this is a kind of unprecedented barbarism that have not been seen, for many, many, many decades. And it cannot be justified under the doctrine of self-defense. And I was heartened that South Africa took the initiative to carry them to the international court. Surprisingly, Germany came out and committed to join the defense of Israel.
Chile also.
Yeah. And I think Namibia, came out to remind the Germans of the Holocaust that they did in that country. But I really am baffled at what is happening to sections of the European mind on these matters. I mean, they have always had a long history of committing genocide from the colonial period, slavery and all of that, the destruction of the indigenous people. But one would have thought that over time they had matured and that they would be very sensitive to genocide in this modern period of human history, but we have seen a retrogression.
All right, your point is well made and well taken. I just wanted to put a little, be a devil's advocate, because we shouldn't be long on this. You said South Africa has come out, but I've been reading some people who are arguing that the Arabs themselves have been very vicious in terms of their dealings with Africa, particularly North Africa. And even though many of the Arab countries are supposedly part of Africa, their treatment of the dark-skinned Africans is often questioned. I believe in Libya after a lot in the Sudan, further down. And many Africans who are even traveling through the Arab world to get to places like Israel and so on, that they're basically imprisoned, their feet are cut off, they're butchered and so on. So the question of support for the Arabs, there are African people who are saying that Arabs don't care about black people and we shouldn't support them and so on. What are your thoughts?
I would just simply say two wrongs don't make a right.
Okay. Okay. All right. We are in a period, tomorrow is supposed to be budget day, and there are expectations. I was listening to some of the expectations of the PNC, APNU in relation to the budget, particularly to ease the pressures of the rising prices in the market, and bringing stability to the homes of people. What are your expectations in relation to Budget 2024?
I hope what the opposition is arguing is not expectations and it's alternative policies, because I really don't believe that we could expect anything progressive from the budget. You expect the budget to be, as the Jaguar and Ali them tell you, it will be more of the same. They make it clear it's going to be a continuation of previous budgets, which have given great priority on infrastructure spending and little priority on social spending and social development. And I think that has been the characteristics of all the PP budgets since they returned to power after the last elections. And I don't anticipate a shift in any other direction. I think it's more the same. I do believe, and to me what is important is for the masses of the country to understand the importance of the budget. Because budget is a very serious exercise, is a very serious document, because it is where those who control power, the government and the state, outline for the rest of the year, and even sometimes they'll beyond the year, who gets what, when, how, and where. And I think that is very important. And there need to be a paradigm shift in the way we compile budgets and the way we set national objectives, but that can be achieved by appealing to the PPP. I don't think that is possible until you defeat the PPP or you force them into some historic compromise on governance, that we may be able to create a political atmosphere to reconstruct the way we handle budget and the way we set out to achieve outcomes. Now, why the budget will demonstrate spendings in the various sectors of the economy, those who are involved in fishery will have a sense of what kind of money the government intends to expend in fishery, and what kind of innovation, if any, they intend to employ. Those who go in transportation, those who in commerce, manufacturing, so the various sectors will have a sense, of the kind of money the government intends to pump into their sector, and the kind of collaboration the government may be trying to initiate in the sector. So from that, they could make a judgment as to whether the interest, is taken care, by those arrangements. So it gives each sector a chance to see where they stand, at least over the next year. Now, the government have, over the last two budgets, have been deliberately not, in the early days, one of the big things about budget for working people was that in the early days, budget always, was characterized by clear directions of increases in workers' wages and salaries and the conditions of workers, and clear allocations of funds to the working people. So you had a sense, of what are the possibilities. Now, in the more recent budget, the PP have moved away from that, and they don't honor collective bargaining, and you never know for sure how much money they allocate, for the public sector workers, and they tell you that will come after the budget, or that is hinged to some sector of the budget that is, nebulous, and so forth and so forth. And I think that the working class people, the workers and the leaders, they need to make up their mind, and reject that kind of budget formulation, and to come out in the numbers. I remember budget day, in the colonial days, in Burnham days, in the early PPP days, outside Parliament, you got thousands of people, outside Parliament, and the various political parties got their supporters and the unions, and people have their placards making the demands. Now, budget day is passed in this country with no physical demonstration of serious concern by the population, and I think that this is unfortunate. And so for me, the budget will continue to enrich the privileged few, and it will continue to pauperize the majority, and it would not deal effectively with the major challenge facing working people. And that is the challenge to improve people's economic and social condition and to deal with poverty. Look, all the PPP budget from the time they came to power after the elections have been to extend taking people out of poverty, because it's not a case where they don't have money. They have money. Overall, 75% of the earnings from the oil is in the U.S. bank. So we're not operating in a situation where we have a scarcity of funds. It's deliberate budgetary policies and political policies to say, look, the poor and those who are poor could wait. You gotta wait 10 more years before we get around to you gotta wait. Our priorities are our big shot friends who we give them massive contracts and who, when the budget is announced, they could calculate that they go into the bank out of these contracts that they get with millions of dollars to their accounts. And the working people are left to scrunch. We in the WPA have made it very clear that we want an approach to poverty. We will not rest until we win, regardless of who is in power, whether it's this government or another government. Our position on this matter is clear. We made it clear in the elections, when we campaign as WPA and not as APMU, that we want, as a anti-poverty measure, the Buxton proposals which asks for each Guyanese household be given, $1 million Guyana, which is equivalent to like $5,000 US annually. We believe that, and we still believe that that is an important starting point, to begin to deal with poverty. So, apart from all the other measures that the government may take, to deal with poverty, working people households know, regardless of what happened to me during the year, if the government policies didn't play out well for me, if my economic activities as a small business person didn't play out well for me, I have like an insurance policy. At the end of the year, I got $1 million Guyana, which could compensate and bring me back into business. And we want that predictability, in guaranteeing, cash transfer to households, because for us, that must be like old age pension. Regardless of who government in power, old age pension don't be touched. And we want the cash transfer to be that, not to be something subject to the fancies of a particular government and a particular set of politicians. It is written in the law, And then we want to move beyond that. For what we call, we want that there must be a policy that guarantees that every Guyanese, will have earnings that put them above the poverty level. Whatever is the measurement we agree as a society about poverty, let us see if, just for the sake of the discussion, that a person who working for less than $150,000 is in the poverty line. We want the state to guarantee that every Guyanese household and every Guyanese, man and woman of adult age is guaranteed income that will keep them above the poverty line. So if, for example, I'm working for $75,000, monthly, it means that I'm short another $75,000. The state will make sure that I have that $75,000, so that I can't be living in social conditions that is below the established national poverty line. And those are some of the things we would fight for in any government that the WPA find itself in, and I have to deal with construction of budgets. So basically, we don't expect much from this budget, but we're urging that the stakeholders among the working people and the ordinary people begin to make up their mind. You have to make yourself a priority, and you're only going to become a priority when you begin to fight back against these things.
So you don't expect much, but we expect that it's going to be a
A
There's
big budget,
big
price
budget.
in money.
In terms of money.
Yeah.
What has been happening, Oban, in many instances is that lots of monies are allocated for different sectors, and you don't get a sense that this money is spent, but you don't really get a chance to check it, because they will tell you that so much is for public service, for salaries and so on. But when you're given 6% or 6.5%, and you equate that with what they would have pointed to as being allocated in the budget for public service payments of salaries, then it doesn't match. It doesn't even come close to what Parliament has approved. Where does all the other money go?
Well, I mean, I can't answer you with a great degree of certainty, but we haven't had a meeting of the, you see, the public, they got a committee in the Parliament, they call it Public Accounting Committee, which is supposed to be going through the government annual spendings. But the problem with that committee, they're always far behind. But anyhow, this government have refused to have any significant meeting at that committee, which means clearly they don't want anybody to check, be up to date on the PAP spending. They want you to spend a lot of time on the old accounts, but don't worry, this present spending here. And unless we are exposed to that, we only could assume, in a technical sense, monies that are not spent supposed to go back to the consolidatory fund. So it go back to the, but you only could know that if you access to the information. But you and I know that a lot of money that is allocated, they find ways to spend it, or to hide it. And when they spend it in a way that facilitates corruption. And when they find a way of hiding it, it's also to facilitate corruption. So corruption is a big part of when you see governments are not investing in transparency. So that's the way I will answer it.
The Minister of Public Health really, the Public Health, the department came out with figures. I can't remember them ever coming out with an end of year pronouncement and review of particularly the Georgetown Hospital and the medical system across the country. But it came as no surprise that they're saying that we're significantly short on nurses and so on. And that, you spoke about the fact that there is a constant march of nurses to places like Britain and so on. But for me, this announcement did not come as a surprise at the time when this come. Were you surprised that the minister, and subsequent to that, only last night I was listening to Jack Dio saying that they will have to steal nurses from other countries to bring them here to work. How does that relate to your perception of this end of year reporting and Jack Dio's pronouncement about stealing nurses? Politically thinking, what do you figure?
I think that the shortage of nurses and its impact on the health system have become so pervasive that the government can't hide anymore. They can't deny the fact. So they do the next best thing is to admit that there is a shortage, and it seems to be saying that shortage will be filled in two ways. They will train more nurses, and then they will recruit nurses from Cuba and elsewhere. But I don't know that you could recruit nurses from Cuba and elsewhere and pay them the kind of salaries that you're offering our nurses. The fact that our trained nurses are going to greener pastures is a question of salary. And unless you deal with that salary problem, I don't see, you actually dealing with the problem. But again, the deal with the nurses' salary significantly is tied up in the logic of PPP's approach to the public sector workers, which the majority of them are Africans, a large number. So they don't want to liberate that sector, from economic bondage and give it, competitive wages with the international reality out there, for whatever reasons they may have. Now, politically, you see, I think JAGDU and the PPP is beginning to come under the pressure, because you can't at the same time, everybody in the world knows Guyana at present is one of the fastest developing countries in the world, and Guyana is earning significant funds from oil, and that will increase year on. You can't be in that position and at the same time crowd that you can't maintain in nurses, or you can't grant them attractive salaries to stay home, but at the same time you committed to pay foreign nurses, which I'm certain you have to pay far much more. Okay, it's a contradiction. It's a contradiction, and I think that the union that represents the nurses, I think, is the public service union. I think that they have to do a little more. They have to do more campaigning and sensitizing the rest of the world on this unnecessary situation, because we could pay and maintain our nurses, and I haven't seen any explanation on JAGDU or PPP that sounds to be rational why they can't keep the nurses.
Well, I wasn't surprised by the press conference and the reporting politically, and because if we follow what has been happening in Guyana, I mean, I received a WhatsApp message from someone who is of the Islamic faith, and what the message said, I went to a mosque today. Last week there were about 4 people who apparently came from Pakistan or Bangladesh, and so on. They had to be Muslim because they were in the mosque. And I went back the next week, there were over 50 of them. The place was crowded, right? They're not speaking English, and they're not Guyanese, but they're from Asian countries. And what he's saying in the message, he says the PPP are importing Indians, all right? And this pronouncement of shortage of nurses and JAGDU's subsequent announcement that they will have to steal nurses, look to see where the stealing is coming from, where they're going to be stealing the nurses. You see, the PPP is on the agenda of demographic configuration, and so their entire, with the Venezuelans as well as the people whom they're hoping to bring, it's not a question of payment and all of that. They don't mind our nurses leaving because they're black people. It's a matter of driving them out, okay, because of the poor wages. But they're going to bring people whom they think are going to be able to be used, because already GCOM is saying that, well, look, there is a period of claims and objection which is pretty short, because I think it's ending tomorrow or something like that. And if you're a Commonwealth citizen living in Guyana for 1 year, then you are eligible to be part of the elections. What Commonwealth countries do we have in Asia that the PPP can turn to bring people here, to make them eligible in a year, because JAGDU announced elections for 2025 for participation in our elections. These are things that you have to factor into the entire equation. So when I heard that after so many years you had this announcement about nurses and so on, my mind immediately went in that direction. Just as you're saying, in the comments section, in relation to Jack Vio's pronouncement, people are questioning why is it that you are bringing people here to pay them when you're not paying your own people. What is it that is preventing you from keeping your nurses rather than having to go to tell us that you're going to steal nurses from somewhere else? It's part of the larger political agenda to reconfigure the population, nature of the population of the country. And we're basically sitting idly by and taking it. The kind of brazenness in terms of, and in many ways, the PPP's brazen action reflects our own stupidity. Because I remember under the APNU that Haitians came here, and we had to fight the Granger administration to have them, because the people were not even coming here to stay, they were merely passing through, and they were locked up until people protested and all of that. So politically thinking, the PPP, I believe, and Jack View and those, they don't mind, they don't care, but we somehow always believe that we have to be somehow, I don't know what, right? And so it's all a matter for elections, and it's not only in that sector. Every day our population is changing. People are, plane loads of people are being brought, coming here. They're coming not only through the airports, but they're also coming through the forest and backtrack and so on, right? So this talk about winning 2025 and getting rid of this government, I don't know how you're going to be doing it if you are sitting back and allowing them to rig in a way that will suggest, just as they did with the last list, you understand, that through the people who were overseas, not on the list, but they use their ID cards, this time they will have people on the ground to say that these people are here, but these people are not legitimate people to vote. The Venezuelans in particular are not legitimate citizens of this country because they're being given birth certificates, they're being given ID cards, they're being given TIN numbers and everything, but they are not eligible to participate in our elections. So how are we dealing with that, battling that?
No, you're quite right, and I agree with you that the PPP is very clear on their line of march to winning, to maintaining the domination, in the country, and to steal elections. My position. My position has always been, and that I have come to accept a certain logic in Guyana, and I think that logic will open the door to deal with all the other problems. Is that we have to, and I'm saying the African community for a start, because whether we like it or not, the two major communities that will shape the political direction of the country, whether we like it or not, is Africans and Indians, because we constitute the majority. Unfortunately, the Americans doesn't have the kind of clout, as
but
yet.
The
votes are important. But, in the scenario that I'm looking at, votes are not the issue. You see, look, we have to be realistic, especially the African section of the country. And we have to be realistic in the sense that we can't continue to argue about fair and free elections, given our own history with dealing with elections. You see, the Burnham period and the PNC period put the African community, on the back foot when it comes to elections. And unfortunately, the way the 2020 elections went, revive, that propaganda bandwagon that the PPP is using. I don't think you could convince Indians that the APMU, AFC didn't deliberately seek to rig elections, and to the extent that there's problems in the elections, both sides are probably guilty. You're not going to find no support for that line in the Indian community. And the PPP understand that. The African community will not accept that the APMU was fairly defeated. They see it as regime change. And that is not isolated, because we know how the US and Pompeo and all them, play throw the weight in the equation. So we have had a history of elections, and elections is what determine, who govern. And our governance system is based upon the winner take all. If I beat you by one vote, literally, okay, I have the right to form the government, and I have the right to the presidency. I may got some issues in parliament, okay, but at least I get the government and I get the presidency. And I am saying, look, Guyanese, we have arrived at a point where some political realism got to kick in. We're not going to convince each side that anyone will be better when it comes to election rigging. And therefore, election rigging is facilitated by the logic of the constitutional arrangements for governance, winner take all. So for me, if you want to deal with rigged elections and you want to deal with all the other challenges that come out of one-party governance domination, you have to change the governance system to one that is more inclusive and one that is executive power sharing, in which after the elections, when we don't vote race, when we don't vote in a partisan way, the Constitution say that you all got to sit down in this executive and run the country together. That is the only solution for our problem. And if we don't implement that solution quickly, as the Americans point out to us, not in the language that I'm putting it, but I'm putting it in language, a non-diplomatic language, so the average Guyanese can understand. The Americans, who have played a major role in shaping whatever Guyanese politics has become from independence to present. Every important juncture, to get in the Cold War, where they had problems with Chedi, okay, they encouraged Burnham and the PNC, okay, to rig elections. A lot of people don't understand that the PNC didn't rig elections for black people simply. Okay. They rig elections on the instructions and to facilitate the geopolitical, strategic agenda of the United States. But the PPP and the Indian, intellectuals, they don't want to deal with that reality, but they just concentrate on the PNC and the African community, and not want to deal with the people who guarantee and make sure that the burden of PNC domination hold until the Americans were prepared to alter it after they come to an agreement with the Soviet Union, on some international redirection of the politics. And then come American tie-in, aid, the fair and free elections, blah, 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 and then Carter. And after Carter, Carter came, and Carter, having understand what took place in Guyana, he felt that he could have convinced the PPP leadership, to some more inclusive government power sharing, Jagan Komandai, and he was working with the younger man, Mr. Jagdio at the time, and Carter left Guyana and really disengaged from that project, very disappointed that far as that the Jagdio and the PP bite his hands, that what they had expected, the level of reasonableness, to really move Guyana to a genuine solution, didn't come from Jagdio and the PPP as Carter, Center and Carter was hoping. And then we know that when we come to 2015, PPP claimed that they didn't lose the election in 2015, that the APMU, AFC rigged the elections, but they only gave up power. They were forced to give up power, and they were told by the United States ambassador, Lynch, that the US said change the governance arrangement to the niceties. It is the demand of the Guyanese masses and the willingness to fight for it that push the country governance and constitutional forward. So I'm saying that we reach a point after 70 years or so where this post the election consensus has failed us. We're going forward in the context of oil and plenty. We need a new consensus based upon executive power sharing where you have no winners and no losers. And it is the African community who has to invest energies into destroying the present winner-take-all system. And that is the historical challenge facing the African political leadership, whether it's in the PNC, the APMU, sections of the WPA, sections of the AFC, wherever the African have political expression. The historic challenge is to renovate the governance system which brings Africans to the political table so that we could participate effectively in management of the oil money and redesigning the economy and the future of the country. This is important. You see, with our stakes in the economy, which is less than 10%, Indians probably must got 40% of the economy, the Portuguese and the Chinese and probably others will got the rest. Now we can catch up, in you and I lifetime, unless special measures are put in place that one, accept the disparity, two, accept that oil money, if it's not being directed in a certain way, will widen the gap between the Africans and the rest of the community, the Amerindians and the rest of the community. You can't avoid that. Anybody who say different, they're dishonest, and they're deceitful. But once we accept that, then the logic means that we have to use oil money to correct historical injustices wherever those injustices manifest itself. So the changing of the governance system is not simply a party matter. It is a matter to guarantee the survival of the African community and to maintain the cohesion of the country in the light of oil and plenty. This is what is confronting us. And I don't care, I can't see Africans knowing the present situation will accept this logic without a struggle. And since I believe they would not accept the logic without a struggle, I think it's this generation of political leaders that has the responsibility to guide the African response and the national response to one, that is more homogeneous, less problematic, and less painful for the entire country.
Well, I mean, you have said a mouthful there, but where are we going to get that response? How are we going to initiate it? Are we educate this? I mean, you're talking about it here, but the organization of the people on the ground to effect that response. Are we of that mind at the moment?
I don't think so. I think that the bulk of the masses are still hooked into the election politics and the election logic, thinking that they could resolve these problems electorally. And because the PNC haven't made the paradigm shift, and they're preparing to win the elections, which means they want to win it under the present old system. It creates a lot of problems, and it have an effect on the ground, of disorganizing the people from the direction which we would want them to go. So it is harder for us to convince people. But I believe that truth will always prevail. It's just a matter of time. And if what we are saying are correct, a point in time will come when the logic will be so pervasive that the African Guyanese community and the entire nation will have no other alternative but to respond to that logic. And I think it is the duty of us, so there have to be a section of us who are not buying into the election politics and they will take all things, and is prepared, to invest some time and energies into a constitutional solution. And I personally is prepared to invest energies in the constitutional solution and not the electoral solution. Now, I can't speak for the WPA. The WPA is a party like any other party, and they will have to make a decision on where they throw the weight. But wherever they throw the weight, my argument is a constitutional struggle does not negate an electoral struggle, because it creates the condition for an electoral struggle that is more worthy of having. And I am convinced, given all my years in this struggle, I have seen the behavior of our people, and I've seen the behavior, the behavior we're reproducing in the young people is just as bad as when I was the age of 16. Now I'm the age of 71. I see the governance system producing a new breed of Guyanese without any a sense of real togetherness, and a sense of historical justice. And while we're not developing that kind of country, the world is not sitting and waiting for us. Regardless of what we do, the logic of oil means that people are coming to this country, and the next 10, 15 years they may have more foreigners in Guyana than local African and Indians. And a time will come that where we could be a minority in our own country, while we begin to while we fight among ourselves, people take away the country from you. This is what we're really facing here, and our leaders don't seem to care. And I can't, in good conscience at my age, face African community, face the Guyanese nation, and tell them that the salvation lies in the elections. I don't care who wins those elections. The salvation lies in going beyond when to take all elections and building some cohesive power sharing so that all of us could begin to reconstruct the country and begin to prepare ourselves for the defense of the country. Not only against Venezuela, but against the economic sharks that are out there, who will, as oil continues to be pumped, will come in under all kinds of disguise, and we can't stop it. And more so with our division. And a population of 750,000 people, once this economy starts to move, that will be replaced very quickly. People forget that when slavery ended in this part of the world, the majority of the population was Africans. And then as the Europeans begin economic activities, they whiten the place. Because there's a logic of European capital or North American capital. It brings the people.
Well, we still can, as you said, electorally, we still have to focus on the dead people on the list. We have to focus on...
Yeah, the electoral people got to do that. But I don't have to focus there because that's waste of time. Let me block up the thing so that we don't have to waste time with that.
Okay.
I mean, the electoral people, if people commit to election, then they got to pay attention to that. But if I'm commit a constitutional struggle, that is irrelevant because we ain't going there. We ain't going there. I sometimes listen to some of our colleagues, both in the opposition and even the WPA, and I reflect on the last struggle that we had for the local government. Especially, I'm more concerned with some of the PNC people who engage in a level of dishonesty, political dishonesty, which I find, worrying. I don't mind political differences, but I think that political differences, and especially among, comrades, and people on the same side, people who have the same objective basically in mind, should be done based on the principle of truth, fairness, and accuracy. And they will make statements that, look, people are telling them they mustn't contest the local government elections, and if they don't contest the local government elections, they will left Georgetown, Amsterdam, all to the PPP, and then they will go in and contest the elections. Now some of these same people saying it's a good thing they contest. Now I don't know who they're talking to, and I can't say what is the polemics that happen within the rooms of the PNC. Whether there are PNC people saying don't contest the elections and left everything to the PPP. But to the extent that the WPA was out there and we were out there, we made it clear that we're not contesting the election, but we're creating a crisis Okay, so they couldn't change nothing, and that we have to come to political solutions. So it's not conceding anything to them. It's to be bringing the country to a halt, a monumental halt. You can't replace nothing until we come to a solution. Now, but you don't hear that from them. You know, so they perpetuate the myth that somewhere along the lines, people were saying they must give up the space to the PPP. At least I didn't say so, you didn't say so, the WPF out there didn't say so. You know, but we have to, on these serious matters, we can't just knock the PPP and then we ourselves engage in that dishonesty. You know, so, you know, even though people say politics and morality, I think they need some amount of morality if people are to, you know, move forward in any progressive direction. You know, we're not going to be 100% saints, but there must be some red lines that, you know, we try not to cross in our relationships, you know.
All right, I figure we don't have much time left on the program, but tomorrow's budget is our major concern to us. We're hopeful that, you know.
Yeah. I want to back for the old age pensioners. Many of the old age pensioner friends are saying they want at least $50,000.
They're not going to get 50. The grapevine is that they're going to get $40,000.
Okay.
That they're going to get $40,000.
Yeah. But we have been batting for 50. And we got to continue pressing.
50. That is what the PPP
had committed to.
Yeah.
But we on this program have been, you know, reminding them
and,
you know.
But I understand that they're going to be given $40,000. But still, you know, the public servants and the other sectors of the society, you see, people don't seem to understand that if you give the government is, and Jagbio is talking about, you know, balancing the economy and looking at other sectors and so on. But if you're increasing public servants' salary, you're giving them a salary that not necessarily to create an economy that is where people are able to spend willy-nilly beyond their means. You are bringing people to a level where their life and livelihoods are in sync with what is happening on the market. All right, our GDP is kicking, and of course that can drive inflation with it. But still, you know, the driving of inflation, bringing people up to a level, particularly the rising prices in the market, all right, which is running away from the ability of people to live in a manner that they would have been living before. It's really outrageous that what you're getting as increases is not even measuring up possibly halfway to what is happening
in the
prices in the market.
Yeah.
And so if you're to put aside GDP and all of that and focus on the basket of goods, you know, that is used to measure how people are making out in the economy, it definitely shows that what you could have bought with the salary that you got last year and even the increase that you have, that you are way incapable of measuring up to that. The GPL is a concern. Salaries, people's monies your bills are tripling and doubling. And it's not a 1 month thing anymore. This is a continuous process of piling an increase on people's bills. We don't know, they have not announced an increase, all right, on the rates being charged by GPL, but your bills
reflecting a major increase.
One young lady went on the Facebook and said she got a bill over $40,000. She never received a bill like that. When you go to them, they're telling you have to pay. You see, there is no redress when you go to complain about these unusual bills that are coming to you. Right, but GPL for years, due to the mismanagement of the system, whenever they have a shortfall,
Somebody got feel
yeah, they always throw it on the
back on the consumers.
of the consumers. But this time it's pervasive. It's just
Yeah.
it's something that is on. It's not a 1 month thing anymore, but it's something that is going on and on and on. Right? Oh Lord, this child is persistent. I'll call you back. I'm on television right now, so yeah. So it's a lot that we have to focus on, and the after the,
Budget.
well, by the time the budget will be read, would have been read. But also to the continued threat of muzzling people
Yeah.
on media like this and social media and other avenues for venting. They've already tried to murder protests by locking up the people from Golden Grove, and now there's a threat that, we're going after those who
Those outside the bar.
yeah, that they can.
Reflex city buses, man.
Yeah. So I look forward to seeing you next week, brother. We're going to the people out there. It's been a pleasure having you, and we see you next week. Same time, same channel for another program of Walter and Groundings. Do have a good night. Yep.
Hi, Paul. It's posted really YouTube for the
What time is it? 10. Oh,
by Chennai standards, right?
your program is how long? So how we are finishing supporting?
We start at 5:30.
Oh, alright.
So then we start at 10. People start at 5:30.
Okay.
Take care.
Yeah, take care, man.
How long is it for them to go back?
I know what. Starts at 7.